Good afternoon to everyone watching today on Facebook. I'm very excited to be here with someone who you're going to see a lot more of here on Channel 3, attorney lawyer Twilly. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And he's a personal injury attorney, but the first questions first, because I know everyone watching is going to want to know the answer. Your first name actually is lawyer.
My first name actually is lawyer.
Legal, it's on your birth certificate.
Yes.
How did your parents decide on that name?
See, I'm the second. I'm named after my father. So he's lawyer Twilly number uno, and I'm lawyer Twilly second. And apparently he didn't want anybody calling me junior growing up, so he gave me the second as opposed to junior.
Oh, interesting. What does your father do for a living?
He's happily retired right now. I'm sure he's on his motorcycle somewhere enjoying the California coast.
He was not a lawyer, though.
He was not a lawyer.
That was, I think, people would ask, if you weren't a lawyer, would it be,
Oh, gosh.
Did your name drive you to go to law school?
I would say there were two major factors driving me to go to law school. One was being asked continuously throughout my childhood and young adulthood, oh, your name's lawyer. Are you going to become a lawyer, or are you a lawyer? That, and probably the birth of my daughter. When she was born, I worked in the insurance industry, and it just wasn't for me. So I'd be miserable coming home at night, and I would look at her and say, gosh, I can do better. We can do better. What can I do? So I ultimately settled on becoming a lawyer.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
That's your name.
I'd been asked all these years. So I think that sort of planted the seed for me, and then we just kind of took off from there.
So you have a little bit of an interesting backstory. You're from California.
Yes, originally, yes.
And how did you make your way here? Where did you go to law school?
So, born in California, moved to the Midwest, and Oakland, California, when I was growing up was pretty rough, and my mom wanted me to have a better shot at life, I guess, if you will. So she moved us from Oakland to the Midwest, sleepy Rivertown, Burlington, Iowa. Go Greyhounds. And that's where I was, most of my formative years were spent there. And I played football at the University of Iowa. After college, I moved to Connecticut 20 years ago, and it's been home ever since. Did I answer your question?
Yes, I think that was pretty good.
All right.
So your specialty is personal injury, and
Yes.
I think people.
Well, I can't say. Ethically, we're not supposed to say we specialize in any particular thing, but the vast majority of the cases I handle are personal injury cases.
Can you tell me a little bit? I think people aren't really sure what that entails.
It really entails a number of different injuries, but essentially when you boil it down, personal injury is tort law, and if somebody has committed some level of negligence and has inflicted an injury on somebody else, by law they may be entitled to compensation. And so what I do, what our team does, is we try and help those people get compensated for their losses.
So what are some of the types of cases that you see?
Oh, gosh. In my career, I've seen so many different types of cases. When I first was in law school, I worked for an insurance defense firm, a great insurance defense firm, and I was exposed to asbestos cases, mesothelioma cases. They're probably still one of the premier medical malpractice defense law firms. So we had a lot of medical malpractice cases, people being burned by products. So I kind of started out with that. I've done asbestos, mesothelioma, medical malpractice, car accidents, motorcycle accidents, dog bites, burns, if I haven't mentioned that already, slip and falls, you name it, I've kind of handled it.
And these are everyday things. These
Yes.
are common occurrences. They happen to people. This may have happened to you if you're watching it at home from your computer.
Yeah.
This may have happened to you. How do you know when you should call an attorney?
I mean, I'm not going to be one of those lawyers that says you should always call an attorney. I'm not that guy. But if you've suffered some measure of damage, you should probably talk to a lawyer. Most personal injury lawyers, not all, but most personal injury lawyers will speak with you for free to figure out whether or not it's a claim that, is worth pursuing. I recall and I get calls like this all the time. A woman, I don't want to get the story too messed up, but a woman's child was knocked over and bitten by a dog. It wasn't a major bite, but it was the neighbor. There were some medical bills associated with it. The daughter was, I guess they had to go see a psychologist because she was so afraid of other dogs running up. So, there were some damages, which is a term that us lawyers in the personal injury field use. There were some damages, and they reached out to me to ask whether or not it was something they should pursue. And it's always a personal choice, but certainly situations like that, you should call a lawyer, figure out what your options are.
And just because you call a lawyer doesn't mean you have to go to court and necessarily sue someone. You can just call and, do you think this is a good idea?
Correct. And the way that I like to handle things is I try and just shoot straight with you, So if it's a case worth handling or worth pursuing, I'll tell you, and you make the choice. But the vast majority of cases, the injured parties never have to show up to court. The vast majority of cases don't even make it into litigation. So I litigate cases, but a lot of them are handled on the insurance adjuster level where you're just negotiating with an insurance company to sort of, resolve the case amicably.
And I think that's another thing that people might be a little afraid of. They call a lawyer, they want compensation for their damages, but they don't want to end up in a courtroom being grilled by another attorney. So that's not how it usually is.
It rarely happens. Rarely happens.
In the movies, right?
Just in the movies, yes. Or actually, I've seen some other lawyers advertising, but it rarely ends up that way. Yeah.
If you're just joining us, I know some of you tune in the middle. We're with attorney Lawyer Twilly. Yes, Lawyer is his first name, in case you're wondering. He has a law firm here in Connecticut, and we're talking about some of the common things that happen to people every day that you may want to consult a lawyer about.
Car accidents. Recently, and I had a woman reach out to me within the last few weeks. She's in the real estate industry. She was showing a property a month or so ago when we had a little bit of snow and ice, and she fell. And not only did she fall, but the person that she was showing the property to also fell. The landowner did not put salt or sand down and hadn't shoveled, and they were both injured. In fact, she injured her elbow. She waited a long time to reach out because she just didn't want to have to deal with going to court, or really just didn't know what the process entailed. Finally, she reached out to me, and that's what you hire a lawyer to do, right? So you hire a lawyer to sort of handle those issues so you don't have to, that you can go about recovering your medical treatment and your day-to-day life. So that's the whole, you let your lawyer earn the fee, right?
Right.
So.
Well, and I think people sometimes feel guilty. They don't want to go after someone.
Yes.
But if you get hurt, you're in an accident, you get bitten by a dog, you shouldn't have to bear that financial burden yourself.
Right. And, there are, like that dog bite incident I told you where the neighbor's dog knocked the child over and bit her. Let's say that happens to the average person, and you take your child to the hospital. You use if you're fortunate enough and you can actually afford health insurance, you take your health insurance company pays for that. But what most people don't understand is that we look at health insurance as, I have insurance, it's insurance, but it's really a contract between yourself or your employer and the insurance company, and then also yourself and the insurance company. And there are certain behind the scenes, we'll call them laws, where if your health insurance company finds out that there was somebody else, a third party might be responsible for the injuries that they paid out on, they may come knocking on your door asking to get reimbursed.
Oh, wow, I didn't even realize that.
Most people don't. So, it makes sense. You should call a lawyer. If you're out of pocket and you have to go to a hospital for a car accident or for a dog bite or any other sort of injury that a third party is responsible for, you probably should reach out to a lawyer.
You're really protecting yourself.
You're protecting yourself.
You don't want to get in
Correct.
trouble later and have to pay a lot of money back when it
Correct.
wasn't your fault to begin with.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll ask you, what sets you apart from other lawyers? Put you on the spot. I know it's not the easiest question to answer, but.
You know, if I'm being very honest, the experience that I have, and that experience has come in a lot of different ways, right? So, you know, I started out while I was in law school. I worked for a couple of different insurance defense firms, exposed me to a lot of different cases, but it also exposed me to sort of the behind the scenes of what goes on strategically with defense lawyers, and I say defense lawyers, I should be saying insurance company lawyers. So you understand strategically what their game plan is and how they do things. I also worked for an insurance company actually settling cases where people were injured. So, you know, here I am in law school and I'm actually negotiating with lawyers on the type of stuff that I'm doing right now. So I've done it from every imaginable angle that you can think of. So I know what the insurance company wants to do. I know what the defense lawyers want to do. And you couple that with the experience that I've gained over the years practicing as an attorney. I've tried many cases, jury trials, bench trials, and so that, I believe, sets me apart because, believe it or not, there are a lot of lawyers out there. A lot of lawyers out there that, you know, have never tried a case in their life. And I firmly believe that having trial experience helps your clients. It helps you in your practice, but it really helps your clients because the insurance companies, they keep track. They know who's the real deal, who isn't. They know whether or not you'll try a case. Insurance companies are numbers people, you know, they're numbers driven. So, you know, instead of maybe getting that $10,000 offer, they know you'll go the distance and maybe get that $30,000 offer. So, and it's not that you're extorting money from an insurance company. You're really getting the value.
And what your client deserves.
Correct. That's what the value is in the first place. Having the right lawyer will help you get the actual value on your case.
And it's not always about medical bills. No. People, you know, are losing work.
Yes.
They're lost wages.
Correct.
And you know what to go after.
You know a lot about this stuff, don't you? Here.
I try. So I know a little bit. I know a lot about a little bit about a lot of things.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, I mean, in Connecticut, you know, you're looking at your medical bills. We kind of talked about. You're looking at past and future potentially pain and suffering, you know, loss of enjoyment of life. There are several factors that come into play when you're looking at the valuation of case. And so an injury to you may be less impactful to, you know, for an injury, the exact same injury to somebody else. I was just on the phone with an insurance adjuster yesterday, and you know, I was talking to him about valuation of a case, and you know, it's the same. He just settled a case with somebody where a woman had slipped and fallen and received X amount of dollars for her case, and I was talking to him about my situation, and we both agreed that, you know, my client's situation, although almost identical to hers or to the one that, you know, they just resolved, the impact to my client is different. My client is a runner. My client lives out in, you know, rural Connecticut and burns wood and shovels her own snow. And the impact that those injuries had on her are different than the impact that it had on the other woman that doesn't do any of those things and doesn't have those hobbies. So that, you know, you can't kind of look at like a cookie cutter type of settlement. You really have to factor in, and I think that's one of the things that I've become pretty adept at is understanding the impact and value of cases.
Now, is there a statute of limitations?
Yes.
Okay, what is that?
Well, it depends on what.
Like a medical malpractice claim.
Medical malpractice claims, it's told. It depends on when you knew or should have known that, you know, somebody fell below the standard of care. But generally in Connecticut, the statute of limitations is 2 years. But there are tolling issues, so you really need to. and those tolling issues are fact-driven. But I always tell people, if you're concerned about a case, and actually I had to turn somebody down last week, if you're concerned about a case, really keep in mind 2 years here in Connecticut.
So you got to make that decision. I mean, 2 years is a decent amount of time.
It is, but you know, let's say that, for example, you're in a hospital, you were injured, you were in a hospital, you had surgery, and something went wrong with your surgery, but you were in a coma and you came out of it, you know, just before the statute of limitations, the 2 years. Not call it the statute of limitations, but the 2 years. So is it fair to penalize somebody that didn't know? Right. So there are tolling issues that you have to be concerned of, and they're very fact-driven. So I always hesitate to say there's this hard and fast rule, but there is a hard and fast rule, but there are some
exceptions to those rules.
Correct.
Now, where can people find you?
Well, now, because I'm so social media savvy and very social, our office is at 650 Farmington Avenue in Hartford. It's right on the West Hartford line. You can reach me at lalawct.com, which is our website. Handles the same: Facebook, LA Law CT, Instagram, LA Law CT, Twitter, LA Law CT. So LA
and
Law
we'll post
CT,
all
everything.
those links below
Correct.
this video when I'm done with it. I'll put all those. I think it's also important to say you're dealing with families, and you know they're going through not the best times in their lives, and you have a family.
Yes.
So I think that's important to note too.
Sure.
You're married.
Yes.
Kids.
Yes. One
Kid, a
Yes.
daughter.
See,
I paid attention.
Sweetie.
But you know, how does that help you to have empathy and compassion for your clients?
That's a really good question. And I'm really glad you asked it, because I just started this law firm and I really want to do things different than what I've seen, okay? I've worked at places in the past that kind of looked at cases as dollar signs. And the culture that I'm trying to build with our firm, and not just with our clients, but in the community, is putting people first. In fact, it's in our employee handbook. If I don't think you're a client-driven person, personable person, then it probably won't work with us. But we really want to put people first. Having a family, having a daughter and friends that have been affected by injuries. You know, I have somebody in the family that is a guy that was exposed to asbestos for many, many years and has had medical issues associated with that. That makes it personal for me. You see it, and you want to help those people. So really, being a family person and family guy, it just, I guess, I'm talking a whole lot, but
It changes your
sum
perspective.
it up, it does. It changes your
Yeah.
perspective. It makes you want to help people and put people first. Because if you put people first, I think, you know, everything comes back to you. I don't know how you can go wrong if you're really trying to take care of people first and put their interests first. And that's the culture that, you know, it's not just our clients, it's how, you know, I treat the people that work in my office. You know, it's supposed to be a family. You know, if you treat your people and your staff a certain way, I hope that carries over into how they treat our clients. So it's a culture thing, and that's something that I really am striving to do in our business, and to do differently than what I think other places have done. And I'm sure there are plenty of lawyers out there that feel the same way as I do, but there are plenty that don't.
Good point.
So
I've been talking with attorney lawyer Twilly. He's got a firm in Hartford. If you have any questions, 844-GET-LA-LAW.
yes,
lalawct.com.
yes.
And I'll post all the links to Facebook, Instagram, all of those right underneath here. And it's been a pleasure talking to you, lawyer.
It's been great. Thank you. You made it pretty painless on me today.
And we'll be seeing a lot more of him, so stay tuned.
Thank
Have
you.
a good afternoon, everyone.